Wall Street can't be fixed. It is a fundamentally corrupt system. It functions, you know, trying to fix Wall Street's like trying to fix the Mafia, so it's not quite so, you know, not quite so destructive. I mean, you know, you get rid of the Mafia. And that's, you know, that's what Wall Street has become, is essentially a legal crime syndicate.
This is Peak Moment. We are living at a peak of human innovation, information, wealth, and health. But we're also at a peak of population and consumption, with rising temperatures and declining resources fueled by cheap oil and gas. Peak Moment Television, bringing you examples of positive responses to energy decline and climate change through local community action.
Hi, welcome to Peak Moment. I'm Janaea Donaldson. My guest today is David Korten, who has brought us 3 tremendous books: When Corporations Rule the World, The Great Turning from Empire to Earth Community, and now the 2nd edition of Agenda for a New Economy, from Phantom Wealth to Real Wealth, with a Declaration of Independence from Wall Street. Them strong words. David, thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me.
It's always a delight to talk with you.
I'm going to quote you. You said, "A Wall Street-Washington axis has stolen our money and our country and denied us our rights." Them's fighting words. What do you mean? What's gone wrong here since, at least since the economic meltdown of '08, but
Yeah.
deeper?
Well, it's not entirely new, but it's become so much more visible after the financial meltdown. Now, it's very interesting in terms of our politics because, you know, progressives or liberals tend to look to the government as the solution. The conservatives tend to look to private business, particularly corporations, the big corporations, as the solution. Now, the problem we've gotten into is that in both the business world and the government world, we have got this enormous concentration of power. On one side in the federal government, the other side in Wall Street institutions. And the two have essentially joined together in an alliance that is not about the interests of people and communities and families. It's really about the interests of Wall Street bankers and making as much money as possible.
Which is what we see indicated with all the big bonuses for the CEOs, and the banks too
Absolutely.
big to fail got bailed out by taxpayer money. And I mean,
Absolutely. But we also see it in the enormous financial contributions that the Wall Street makes to our politicians. Now, at the same time, we've got this concentration of control in corporate media, and if you're a politician and you want to get elected, you have to have the money to buy the time from corporate media because they won't give you any time on the news. So, you know, as a politician, even with the best of intentions, you're locked into whoever's got the money, and Wall Street has the money.
and they're controlling everything, is what it looks like, just about.
That is the basic message. That is the basic message. And here's the other piece of it. Their function, I mean, they control the economy and they control the society by their control of money.
Okay.
And their sole objective is not about, creating economies, investing in real productive activity to produce jobs and to, produce the food and all the things that we need to live well. They are only concerned with how much more money can they extract out of the system. At the same time, they have the capacity to create money out of nothing, and they use that power to hold us in debt slavery, control the politicians, and jigger the whole set, all of our economic priorities in ways that serve their financial bottom line at the expense of people, families, communities, and nature.
It sure looks like David and Goliath here. Nothing personal with you. But, well, yes, maybe
Well,
you are our David here.
I don't mind that analogy.
But it looks like everything is so interlocked and so entrenched. I mean, I see people wanting to say, well, if Wall Street, separate the investment banks from the, and all kinds of things that you call tinkering at the edges.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is tinkering isn't going to do it.
Tinkering is not going to do it.
So
Wall Street can't be fixed. It is a fundamentally corrupt system. It functions, you know, trying to fix Wall Street's like trying to fix the Mafia, so it's not quite so, you know, not quite so destructive. I mean, you know, you get rid of the Mafia. And that's, you know, that's what Wall Street has become, is essentially a legal crime syndicate. You know, they're engaged in counterfeiting, in bribery, in extortion, in usury, in fraud. I mean, you just name the range of crimes, but because they control writing the rules, it's not illegal.
And because they're paying off the politicians and contributing, so they're not going to blow the whistle. People we would expect to be blowing the whistle on the political side aren't.
That's right.
And are we seeing anything happening for a movement from the grassroots? That's, I think, what you're pointing to is the need for that.
Absolutely.
And, but, you know, the Tea Party and so on certainly express some of the outrage, the correct outrage that people are feeling.
The outrage is appropriate. We should all be outraged. But the question is, where do we direct that energy?
Yes. Tell me.
Well, first of all, this is the thing that is so, to me, so fascinating. The power of that system depends on their ability to control the story by which we understand the nature and purpose of the economy, the nature and purpose of wealth, of well-being. So they've got us caught up in stories that say money is wealth. Those who are making money are creating wealth, and since those people are Wall Street, we should be framing all of our rules in ways that allow Wall Street to maximize its profits, because that's good for all of us.
That's the big story.
That's the big
Except
story.
it's only helping the people up in Wall Street,
Yeah.
not everybody else.
It's a total lie, because it starts with the fact that money isn't wealth. I mean, that is one of the most deeply ingrained beliefs in our society. But you step back, it is so obvious once you break through the froth. Money's nothing but a number.
Yes. Okay.
It's nothing but an accounting entry. And it's created when a bank creates an accounting entry, creating credit or creating a loan. And you get all these fancy connections and machinations between the Federal Reserve, which is literally creating trillions of dollars now with nothing more than accounting entries, and then passing that money on to the Wall Street banks, all in the theory that, well, if we restore their financial viability, they will flow credit into the real economy, into Main Street, and we'll be creating jobs and producing food and houses and all that kind of thing. But in fact, Wall Street isn't interested in that kind of productive activity. It's only interested in these financial games. So it's looking for, how do we create the next financial bubble? How do we create more phony securities that we can trade and treat as real assets, so they become the collateral for us to issue ourselves more loans, so we can take more bonuses and we can pay more politicians. I mean, it is so outrageous once you begin to understand it. But you have to kind of break through all the details, cut through to the real bottom line, which is, this is all about numbers. And the key to breaking this is changing the story, waking up from this cultural trance, recognizing money is nothing but accounting entries, and who gets to make those accounting entries and decide where that money goes. Those people control the society. And in a society where we believe in democracy, and we believe that power should reside in people,
Yes.
and that our institutions should be accountable to people and communities, then changing the way that money system is structured is the absolute foundation of creating societies that work.
I get that real wealth is like in a farmer's field and his productivity, or a factory that makes chairs. I get that that's true wealth that is tangible. In that regard. But the hold the money system now has on us with their numbers, how do you get a story turned around that can change enough action? It seems to change our behaviors, actually, when they have that much level of control. Don't you have to make some changes up there too?
Well, you know what's you know what's really interesting is the if you're telling a lie, you have to keep repeating it.
Okay.
You know, it's amazing to me how quickly people get this simple truth. That money is nothing but a number, it's nothing but a counting entry, it is a system of power manipulated against our own interests, and we, as a democratic society, we the people of a democratic society, have the right to take back that power.
Okay.
And people get that very quickly.
Yes.
Now, the next step, though, is that's got to break into a larger conversation. If I just keep that truth in my head, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I can, we've got to change the collective story.
All right.
So we, as a society, we begin to discredit those people who are telling the lies.
Okay.
And we begin to refashion our systems. Now, you mentioned what are people doing. I mean, there are really three keys to change, to deep change of this nature. The first is to change the framing stories of the culture, and that's what we're talking about, the stories about wealth and money, etc. The second is to work to create a new reality from the bottom up.
Bottom up. So
From
you're
the
not
bottom
trying to fight those who are in control. You're working
Well,
in part.
that comes in a minute.
Okay, all right.
But the second stage is creating the new reality, and that's what communities are doing all around the country and all around the world. And this is the Business Alliance for Local Living Economies, which I'm very involved in, or the American Independent Business Alliance, or the local food movements, the move your money from a Wall Street bank to a local bank. These are all very concrete things. And increasingly, we're looking at that process in terms of a vision of really recreating local economies that root power in the community, that are built around the value that it's not about how much money we make, it's about the health of our children, the health of our families, our happiness, our sense of meaning in life, our sense of connection, and that the economy is foundational to all of these, and that we can create an economy that is truly democratic and truly based on the real concept of a market, so it's not centrally planned or controlled, but it's about people getting together and working out the means by which they create their livelihoods together.
I'll join.
Yeah, well,
I want that.
people get it, and people are indeed joining. And it's very exciting. That's a source of hope.
Yeah, it is.
And then the third element is change the rules.
Ah, of course.
That's where we get back control of our politicians, and we begin. But as progressive organizations, we've got to be really, I'd say as progressive and conservative organizations. I mean, the wonderful thing is, a lot of these are very conservative values about community control and about family and about personal responsibility, but not just for myself,
and accountability.
but for accountability.
Shared. Yes.
So we need to get together and begin to think together across political lines as to what is the world that we really want? How do we want society to operate? And what are the rules that actually support democracy, to support real ownership by real people, instead of giving the advantage to Wall Street bankers and members of this criminal syndicate that are really engaged in sucking the life and the real wealth out of our communities, out of our families, putting people in situations of debt slavery and desperation for a job, so they'll do any work or do anything that a Wall Street firm finds profitable in the short term.
That's actually, that has deepened so much in this last 2 years since it's more blatant. You're right, it's visible.
Yeah.
People whose homes are getting foreclosed and more homeless and more unemployed, and cities and states at the edge.
Yeah.
If we made you king of the world,
Yeah.
king of the U.S., you get to do it all, what would you change in changing the rules?
Well, that's a bit of an anomaly because I'm really committed to getting rid of the Wall Street kings.
Okay. How do you, they're not going to give it up themselves voluntarily.
No.
So how can we change the rules, change the system, and begin to diminish their power?
Well, kind of one of the underlying concepts that I like is called walking away from the king. I got this from Tom Hartman.
I like it.
You know, the king's only power depends on the power we yield to him. And if we walk away and say, well, you're not going to play your game anymore. We're going to be organizing our local economies, and we're going to be telling the true stories. And we're going to start talking to our politicians about if they really want to get elected. We're not going to pay any attention to those TV ads. We're going to pay attention to what they're actually doing.
Yes.
So we begin to take that power back. Now, where do we work? Well, one of the first things is change the indicators. You know, we now measure our economic performance by, is GDP growing, gross domestic product, or is it shrinking, and how fast is it growing? Now,
Yes. Yes.
you know, this is, GDP is a financial measure. It's a measure of how fast money is flowing through the economy, which, you know, we've been conditioned to think is a really good thing, but it's not necessarily a good thing. You
because
know?
GDP measures, if it's just money flowing through, if it's the Wall Street casino, that counts
Yeah.
as GDP, and if it's a toxic fund site that we have to clean up, that's
Exactly.
And people, you know, cancer treatments.
You know, where I
It's not
really
health.
became attuned to this was, you know, my work in low-income countries in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And, you know, you always wonder, the World Bank and IMF are all putting out these statistics about how income is increasing, so people's lives are better off and so forth. You step back and you realize at the early stage what's actually happening is you're taking people who are living in a subsistence economy where they grow their own food, they get their health care from their neighbor.
Yes, yes.
Most of life is not monetized. You know, they help each other build their homes and so forth. So it's all based on personal caring relationships. So, you know, they may not be as well off as we want
Materially.
but they have a stronger social structure, and they are far better off than when the development process comes in, forces them off of their land, breaks up their community, forces them into slums or into being landless migrant agricultural
sure,
workers,
Sure.
and yet they're making more money.
And they need that money, but to try and climb up the ladder, or
Well, they need that money because
Just
they can't grow their
because
own food anymore,
course.
and so they have
Of
to buy
course.
their food that is controlled and produced by some transnational agribusiness company. So these are the things that get really hidden when we're talking about GDP. And of course, you know, in our own societies, you know, the more we break up our families so that we do less of our care internal to our family and our household, well, the more money we need. So, you know, we now get into a situation where for a household to survive, you need 2 or 3 adults with 2 or 3 jobs each. You know, among other things, to pay the babysitter and to pay for your
gas for your car,
gas
to, bring you
to
your
go
3
to your jobs and
Yeah.
all that. So, yeah, more money, more profits for Wall Street, but it's not really improving the quality of our lives.
yeah,
So we need to start moving to indicators of what are the things that we really want. And this, you know, it's, you know, things like a healthy environment and a healthy community,
Has anybody started to work on?
healthy, happy children.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, you know, so many of the things that are most valuable are totally intangible, and they cannot be purchased for any price in the market.
That's true. You can't measure, you know, good social ties that give you a safety net.
Yeah,
Should something happen that beats
Exactly.
Social Security that may not be here or whatever.
well, yeah, we're told our security depends on our individual personal wealth.
Instead
Well,
of our
But yeah,
network.
but you can't
Yeah.
count on that because, you
Right.
know, the only way you can, acquire enough financial wealth to really be secure is to put it into Wall Street, where these guys are trying to steal it from you as fast as they can.
So it's
Your only real security is the security of your relationships with the people in your family and community. And so rediscovering that and recreating those relationships is one of the keys. Okay, but that all starts with just, changing. What are the indicators of
Yes,
a
yes.
healthy family? What are the indicators of a healthy, strong, caring community? What are the indicators of a healthy environment? Now, the other indicator that we so focus on is the stock market. The stock market going up and down.
Yeah.
Now, that's simply a measure of how fast are rich people getting richer faster than the rest of us, and increasing their concentration of power, and not for doing anything productive, but simply participating in a system that is inflating all sorts of financial bubbles to create what I call phantom wealth, financial assets that are unrelated to the production of anything of real value. Now, supposedly, that money in the stock market is going into investing in, in productive activity, but very little of that. I mean, most of it is just trading shares back and forth between people, and most of that, nothing goes to the business. There's no new investment in the business that
so
comes out of
just
that.
It's a game. It's a
game. It's a set of illusions. And we buy into it because, of course, we've broken down the security of our families. We have robbed the Social Security funds to cover current deficits.
Yes.
But we've also neglected the fact that the ultimate issue about retirement is how many retired people are there to the number of working people who are producing the food and all the things that retired people need. But we've turned it all into money. We say, well, Social Security is going to fail, partly because we're going to make sure it fails. We're going to destroy it, but also because people are living longer. So it puts more, the elder population puts more burden on the working population unless we change the retirement age and recognize that, one of the big insights in my life was when I turned 65, realizing, this doesn't have to be the end of your life, and there's nothing to do now but sit on the beach and play golf, but you're irrelevant and useless to the society. I mean, it looks kind of neat, but when I go on vacation, if I'm on the beach for more than a week, it gets pretty boring, The big breakthrough for me was realizing that, our elder years is one of the most exciting and productive times of life, and that more traditional societies have recognized this, and they have roles for the elders as teachers, mentors, and wisdom keepers. And it's a whole lot more fun for the elders because you're really engaged. You're not useless. You're not just sitting around waiting for the Grim Reaper to show up and relieve the boredom.
Yes.
So
change the indicators is a big part
change
of
the indicators and change the money system.
How do we change the money system?
Well, a key thing in terms of changing the money system is starting with changing the story about what is money and the importance of how the money system is organized. So a key piece of it is basically, this is the real irony. When I was growing up, we had a financial system that was pretty much rooted in the community. Most of our banks were local community banks, and we had rules that they couldn't even have a branch. All the business had to be within, so many 100 feet of their front door. And so these banks, and we also had mutual savings and loans, which are basically organized cooperatives and credit unions. So a lot of these institutions were nonprofit, cooperatively organized.
Okay.
So they were service institutions to the community. And our local banks, the community banks, they may have been for profit and individually owned, but they were dependent on deposits from the community. People put money in, they were intermediaries, and then they loaned that money back out to local businesses that were producing real goods and services and, providing local shopping and so forth, and local jobs. But all of that was within and rooted in the community and part of a process in which people, local people owned their local enterprises and their local economies. So they're interested in a whole lot more than just the financial profit.
Sure.
I mean, my family had a music and appliance store in our town. But we lived in the community, and Dad participated in the Kiwanis, and my uncle was in the store, was part of the Rotary Club, and they were really concerned about what happened in the community and about the health of our, the cleanliness of our water and all these kinds of things.
More than just the economic bottom line.
More than just the economic bottom line.
They were part of the social fabric, the cultural fabric of your communities. And that's part of your vision here.
That is part of the vision. Restoring that. Yeah.
The abuses that have happened, that concentration of wealth, if people, don't support the king anymore, and
Yeah.
and build our institutions more here and put more of our money in that direction. I mean, that strikes me as there's still plenty of players that are going to keep that big system going.
Oh, there are. And that's where, we need to be working at all levels on changing the rules ultimately. But see, that's also part of that is building the political constituency, the political demand for deep change. And that has to start with a new story about what the purpose of the economy is and what the rules should be. But it also, as we're creating the new reality, that itself is changing the story and helping us see in a very real way what the possibilities are. And as we're working at the community level to rebuild our local food systems, to move toward green building and sustainable energy and so forth, then we keep running up against all these rules that make that very difficult to do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay, let's mobilize to change those rules, because ultimately it is about our rights as human beings, not the rights of some legally artificial personality we call a corporation.
Which is a fiction that
it's a fiction. It
we
has
can
no
change.
soul. It has no conscience. It's just a pool of money. And yet we've created a legal system in which that pool of money has more rights than we do as
Yes.
real people.
Yes. So we dismantle it piece by piece, both as we construct the new story embodied in our communities, and then as we bump against the rules that are encouraging Goliath, we storm the temple.
And this is our Declaration of Independence from Wall Street, which parallels the early colonies when they declared their independence from the British king. They walked away. They didn't start a war. I mean, the way that actually worked, they were walking away. They were reclaiming their own economy. They were building their own politics. And the king got nasty, but said, we're not trying to invade England. We're not trying to take over what's yours. We are simply claiming what is ours and our rights as humans.
Let us declare our independence of Wall Street. Thank you. This is a lively conversation, a good one, an important one, and thank you for sharing that with us. You're watching Peak Moment, Community Responses for a Changing Energy Future, Locally Reliant Living for Challenging Times. I'm with David Korten. Join us next time.